Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the American Songbook Preservation Society, what that's all about, and how people can get involved.
Thank you for asking. Well, this repertoire, which I believe is the zenith of American songwriting, is generally referred to as the Great American Songbook. And that is composed of the Tin Pan Alley, Broadway revues and musicals, and then later the Hollywood musicals. So it's a period from about 1920 to 1960 that I believe was the zenith of American songwriting.
Yeah, me too.
There were professional, not only composers, but lyricists and arrangers. And the body of work is so great, the quality still stands up to me over 70 and 80 years, that these songs were written primarily to advance plots in these plays. And so they're very specific about human emotions. And during the day of the singers in the 1950s in particular, as this was America's popular music, when there was a great song that was written, everybody, all these great singers, had their own arrangements of it and did their little version of it, but they were true in their fashion, in a sense, to the song and the lyric and the songwriter. I know Frank Sinatra was very big on singing the melodies the way they were written and giving an opportunity for a lot of songwriters to show their work through his interpretation. Now, because times have changed, I felt as a singer, I'm a big fan of this, and all my repertoire is really the Great American Songbook and the jazz standards, many of which were based on this repertoire. Because it was popular music, people were familiar with it, and so jazz musicians started improvising this music, and people could follow it because they were familiar with the melodies. To me, this being the heyday, and today what we're faced with is a popular culture that's much, much different, with rap and hip-hop and such, that I felt as a singer it was incumbent upon me, somebody, to take a stand to keep this music going into the future. So I started a nonprofit foundation, American Songbook Preservation, greatamericансongbook.org. People can go there, and our mission is to preserve our cultural treasure, known as the Great American Songbook, by presenting this music to the public at home and abroad as ambassadors of song. So my goal is to raise $25 million, which will endow our organization in perpetuity by generating an annual budget of somewhere between $1 million and $1.25 million a year. To keep this music out in front of the public, to support and present singers singing this music, and also to build an educational resource that is accessible online for the grade school through the university level, to tell people about the composers and the songwriters, the singers, the lyricists, and just keep this music out in front of the public. As you know, probably arguably our ambassador of this body of work is Tony Bennett, who's going to be 82 years old this year, and I just want to keep it going. So I'm trying to raise this money to make this thing happen. We do have a presence online, and we are doing shows. I've done a couple of concerts in Santa Cruz County, and we're doing our first benefit concert on Mother's Day, May 11th, in Los Angeles. And I hope to do an event in New York later this year.
So if people go to the Great American Songbook, all one word, .org.
Yes, leave out the just greatamericансongbook.org.
Okay, and that's where they can find out more about it and how they can be involved. They also, is there like a newsletter or some other, the money gets put into a trust or into a...
Well, we are a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. We are a California corporation, but in the eyes of the IRS, we are definitely a tax-deductible organization. So if people do make a contribution, they'll help us in our mission, but also their donation will be tax-deductible. In fact, between 80 and 90% of all money in charitable organizations comes from individuals. Many organizations go to foundations to try and get money by preparing grants and such, and there's really a lot of competition. I'm trying to find those individual, call them angel donors, who believe in this book, want to see it continue, and we do have acknowledgement for people who contribute at various levels, which you can determine online what those are.
Okay. So that's the thing people should do, is go there and find out all about it online.
Yes.
So if they don't have a computer, they go to their local library and get online there. There's a whole bunch. Most everybody has computers these days, but some of the older generation may have to go to their kid's house or something.
It's true, and this is the music of the greatest generation, and a lot of those people aren't really savvy in that regard. This is the way of the future.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly willing to field phone calls or emails or letters. In fact, they could reach me at the 831 area code 687-0278. My name is Ron Kaplan, and I am the executive director of the organization.
Great, Ron. Tell me, I did look at a little bit of your bio, and it said that your father played the jazz bands back in the 50s. He was a trumpet player?
Yes.
And maybe take me from there on your own journey through all this. Your father's one that got you into it? You got yourself just...
Well, I've always had an affinity for music. And there are anecdotal reports of me singing into wooden spoons, emulating Bing Crosby at a very young age. I've always had a great affection for that muted trumpet sound. My father was a big band trumpet player, but during the 1950s when I grew up, he was playing that muted trumpet like Miles Davis, so I always enjoyed that sound. And my mother was a big fan of vocalists, so as I mentioned, in the 1950s, this was the popular music, so I got to listen not only to Sinatra and all those other crooners, but to the likes of Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan and Billy Eckstine and all those great singers. That music really stuck with me. As I grew up later on and played different instruments, when I got married and started raising a family, I kind of put that on the shelf for a number of years and was just listening to jazz. And when I remembered that I loved to sing, if I could have one job in life, what would it be? It would be to sing. And so I went back to this music that I grew up with, which, again, even though I was a songwriter, just in a different genre, and our generation was affected a lot by the folk music and the rock and roll music and that whole scene.
Right.
But coming back to it, and I believe a lot of musicians do this, they come to jazz in the final analysis because the body of work, the repertoire is so rich, so sophisticated, and it gives also the freedom, which is the really fun thing about interpreting this music, is that you are able to express yourself in terms of finding out how this song resonates with you personally and then bringing that to the song. And it takes a long time in this repertoire to really know this material and then identify with it personally and then tell that story and make it real. Billie Holiday was very effective at this, even though she didn't use a lot of histrionics in how she communicated. You still could feel what she was talking about. Frank Sinatra was very good at it also. He would stand and deliver the song, not distract you with other things, but somehow you knew what he was talking about, that it was real for him, and he was able to communicate that. And that takes a lot of years to find that within yourself. And that's the fun of the music, because it becomes a lifelong pursuit. And it does give you an opportunity to have your own input in the sense of interpreting the songs in your own way. And for me, this is my greatest joy and passion. And if I couldn't sing, I just don't know what I would do. It's the best way I found to express myself. And it's so fulfilling emotionally and on a physical level, and people do respond to the human voice more so than instruments. It's funny, a lot of great jazz musicians will be playing, and people may not give them the attention. Somebody who may not even be that great a singer will start singing, and all of a sudden the attention is on them. So it's really a responsibility, I think, on the singer to really learn their craft well, to do a good job. And it's not only my personal mission to keep this body of work going, but to keep developing as an artist, as an individual.
You know, I noticed here, Ron, on the cover of this New York CD, you've got some of your other albums. It's got Ron Kaplan doing High Standards. Now, if people want to, you've got like 3, 4, 5 CDs or more than that?
This is my 6th recording.
Okay.
My label, Kaplan Records, was my 10th anniversary last year. They could go to my website, which is on the World Wide Web, Ron Kaplan, KAPLAN.com. And they could also find that music online through iTunes or CD Baby, or just type in Ron Kaplan on the World Wide Web, and a lot of things will come up, including the nonprofit foundation.
All right, good. That's just I want to make sure people have that information. Like I said, I've got the New York CD, but I'd love to hear the High Standards and some of the other CDs from before. It would be great. A lot of my show, I've been doing this show since the late 90s, and a lot of times I'll play just the big band singers, Helen Forrest, and then some weeks I'll play the Victimones and the Dinosaurs, and some week I'll play new singers, and some days I'll mix it up with some instrumental breaks. But I key on the singers more than the instrumentals. I'm thinking in the same boat. I just really love the lyrics and the magic of these songs, and what these songs, if I could write a book, or all those great songs, they just say something that it's hard to find again, you know.
That really. That is it in a nutshell. The quality of this music, not only the musical aspect, but the lyric, is just rings true, and that's why it still holds up over time. I just think it's our greatest cultural export. This is certainly something that people around the world recognize as truly American.
I think you're right, and I've talked to some other singers, new singers. I like to interview new singers because I think it keeps it current, keeps it alive. And this one gentleman was doing a concert, and he came off the stage, and a 20-year-old girl comes up to him and said, "Did you write that song?" You know, it was a great Gershwin song. But you know, that's good. I mean, that's how they learn. That's how they but they love it, and it's a lot of people, myself included. Your greatest love song is usually tied to a song. You know, my song was "What Are You Doing the Rest of Your Life?" You know, and a lot of people have songs that they identify with, and I don't want, you know, I have had people negatively say, "Well, it's elevator music." Well, I take umbrage with that.
I understand.
But that's why I do the show, so that I can show them it's a little bit more than elevator music. It's great music, and even back in the 50s, I played Dinah Shirley earlier, and she had the Nelson Riddle Orchestra behind her. You know, those great orchestras from that time period. Right. You know, they came off the big band stage and they went into the studios for like 10 or 20 years. You know.
Yeah. And
they recorded some great standards that really didn't get a lot of play because of rock and roll just taking over. Yeah. And then they had another chance after that to come back, and they're making a comeback right now, I think.
Well, it's interesting. I do agree that a lot of well-known artists got bumped from popular culture with the advent of rock and roll, and then the English invasion with the Beatles and the other groups, and we're displaced. A lot of those people became unemployed in a sense. And
well, yeah, there's a Rosemary Clooney story. I mean, she just got knocked off and got really depressed and got really heavy, and then, you know, for years she was kind of unheard of, and then she made it. Luckily, came back at the end and finished her life once again a star. You know.
Yeah.
But rock and roll did hurt a lot of performers. But we have those mute recordings, and they're still there, and they won't be forgotten. I have one regret. Elvis Presley, for example. Now, there's a guy that if he had lived, if somebody could have helped him get off drugs, I'm sure if he had lived to his 50s, I bet he would have recorded some of these Great American Standards, and he did do a couple, and they're not bad. They're really not bad. The two two I've heard, and I can't remember them right off. Put a little twist to them, but they were really nice. I'd love to have had him live long enough, like Bobby Darin did. Bobby Darin has this great American Songbook collection he did.
Yeah.
And Elvis didn't live long enough, I'm afraid, to the point where he would have been able, like Rod Stewart, to do it.
Right.
You know. But
well, he could certainly deliver a song, Elvis Presley, no
sure.
question about it.
Can you imagine if we had him doing those Great American Songbook?
I would love to hear that.
Oh, me too, me too. And it's been lost, unfortunately, because of, you know, the lifestyle that and the tragedies he went through, you know.
Right. Well, this is another good reason to keep this music going. I had a conversation with Jonathan Schwartz, whose father, Arthur Schwartz, was part of the Great American Songbook.
Right.
And he still does have a radio program in New York where he trumpets these singers. And he told me, in fact, he was involved with Jazz at Lincoln Center and presenting American Songbook singers doing this music. When I talked to him about funding and raising money, he said, Ron, if there was any money out there, I would have gotten it. So it's all on your shoulders.
Uh-huh.
And I really look at it as a kind of a Sisyphus thing, pushing this rock up the hill. But I'm confident that in the end I will succeed, because it's too precious what we have to lose by not keeping this going and keeping it in the public purview.
Oh, you're so right, Ron. And I know now yourself. Now, are you? If people want to come see you in concert or hear you, go to the website. And do you have anything coming up in the next 6 months or so that, or just go there for CDs? Or you don't have a lot of live performances in New York? Or?
Right. Right now, I do sing a couple times a week to keep my chops up and my skills up where I live in Santa Cruz County.
It's a little far away from us, I guess.
Unfortunately, yes. And as I mentioned, on May 11th in Los Angeles, we're going to have a event with somewhere between 15 and 17 singers. It's going to be quite an extravaganza, a 3-hour event. I do want to, as part of this organization, present concerts all around the country. That's my goal. In the meantime, though, people could certainly come to my website and check it out. And one thing that I've also done is on my personal website, ronkaplan.com, you can go to my recordings page and download all of my recordings in exchange for making a donation to American Songbook Preservation Society.
Okay.
So you can click on that, and if you want to hear my music, you're welcome to it. You don't have to buy it. I just ask that if you love this music like I do, maybe you'll consider making a contribution.
Well, I'm glad people, that's why I kind of wanted to get you on today, too, so let people know about that Preservation Society, and hope people will, check it out at least, and then if they choose to, they can make a contribution and hopefully help keep this music alive. Coming in this morning, I was listening to a news channel, and Frank Sinatra Jr., I guess, got a star on, it wasn't the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but...
It's not, he got it in Palm Springs.
Palm Springs,
yeah.
But I didn't like his sister saying, well, he is single-handedly keeping this music alive. I thought that was a little overdone on her part. But at least he's anybody that's out there doing them, I'm happy. Rod Stewart, I don't care who it is. Just get out there and keep this music alive, you know.
Yeah, he's done, Frank Sinatra Jr., of course, I think it's amazing how much he looks like his dad. And he sounds like his dad, but they do have a legacy to uphold, and he has done a lot of things. In fact, I would love Franklin, if you're out there and you want to help keep this music going, please contact me, because I would love to work with you and help build on that. They're in a position, there's a few individuals who could really make a big difference, and I feel it's important before we lose this generation. Clive Davis, on the other hand, saw the commercial value in Rod Stewart being an established personality and doing at least 4 of these American Songbook recordings that they've done very well with. I had a friend just purchase that music for his mother, who's part of the Greatest Generation, and did a little test on her. She really enjoyed those recordings that Rod Stewart did, Then he played some of his rock stuff that Rod Stewart did for her, and she didn't like it. What we determined was that it's the repertoire. It's not necessarily who sings it, although there's lots of room for different styles of singing. But it's the repertoire that stands up time after time.
Yeah, that like one of the other young ladies I interviewed said, these songs have a magic in them, and it's hard. When I first started the show, I said, well, I don't care who records them. How can you mess up, a George Gershwin song? Well, I found out since then people can mess them up. But I naively thought in the beginning that how can you mess it up? But so I'm glad when people don't. The only problem I had with some new singers, they're afraid of being sound alike. I don't want to be another Ella Fitzgerald. I don't want to. You can't top Ella Fitzgerald, so you don't want to. Shouldn't even try. But they try so hard to be different that they evidently aren't listening to the words that they're singing. They hold on to a note, extra long. I mean, they try to impress with their vocal skills, but they lose the essence of the song. Some of them.
Yes.
And that bothers me when that happens.
I agree completely with you, and it is difficult because you're always going to be compared with these people that were tremendously talented, and during the time they got a lot of support. I think that many entertainers, whether it was vaudeville or singers that went around to the clubs or even the jazz musicians that were working constantly, really learned how to hone their skills and their chops. And today, I don't think there's as many opportunities to perform on a regular basis to achieve that level. Now, one of the meditations or goals as a jazz musician or singer in the genre of jazz and the Great American Songbooks is to find your own voice. It's undeniable that we've been influenced by everything that we've heard. One of the hardest things for me was to overcome Frank Sinatra's phrasing because it is so distinctive. I feel that over the course of the years, I am able to recognize, and other people are able to recognize, hey, that's Ron Kaplan, which is really a big achievement within itself.
Right, it is.
And in my own case, I think that particularly in jazz, or people who think of themselves as jazz musicians, can err on the side of trying to be too hip and show that they have chops or skills, and like you say, aren't really singing the melody the way that it was written.
Exactly, that's the problem.
And that really is the key to these songs. Because they were so well written, all you really have to do is sing it that way. And you can deliver the song if you're just authentic to yourself.
And be a little true to the lyrics, don't sing the songs just hitting the notes without thinking about what those lyrics are saying, what the story is to that song, because most of those songs, every one of those songs pretty much, had a little story to tell, a little piece of life that was put into that song. And
precisely.
if you don't listen to the lyrics, and if you don't sing it with the right melody, like you said, you ruin it almost, And that happens more than I care to talk about it.
I'm sure you're exposed to that a great deal in your line of work too, listening to all these singers.
Yeah. Well, I get a lot of. I get a lot of singers that do come in, and there's some new ones that I really enjoy, and there's a few that you wonder. You go, well, But then again, once in a while, somebody surprises me with like you say, you can do a different arrangement, a different take, and can do a really nice job with it. And I've been impressed sometimes with, going the other extreme with some new singers that have done an excellent job with giving a little bossa nova beat to a song.
Right.
That really makes it kind of new again.
Like we did with Manhattan.
Yeah. So.
I was just going to say that is the fun thing about this music, is that you can take these songs and you can do it as a swing or a ballad or with a Latin bossa type of feel, and the song still works. But in terms of interpreting the music as a singer, it's really a process to figure out what story the song is telling and to know where to accent with subtle nuance what you want to accomplish in terms of telling the story to make it real. And so you have to look at the gestalt of the thing, I think, in the final analysis, to be able to interpret it properly and personalize it. And I think that that's really the key to this music. But the stories were succinct. They were written about something very specific, oftentimes in a play or a musical to advance the plot. And it really tries to encapsulate that one thing. And that, to me, also gives a lot of breadth and depth to this body of work, because it does talk about the human condition in many ways. And I just can't think of a more rewarding, as a singer, form of music that isn't formulaic, where it's just repeating the same thing or having a hook. This is about a beautiful melody, about a sentiment and a lyric. And it's about something specific.
Exactly, Ron. I just want to do a little business here. It's 101, people. You are listening to WHUS Stores. I'm having an interview with Ron Kaplan right now, who is, the president of the American Songbook Preservation Society. And Executive Director, and also a singer. And he's got some great CDs out, this latest one, New York, and then some other ones that you can find at his website, ronkaplan.com, right?
Yeah.
All right, Ron, it's a little after 1 o'clock. I just wanted to get back to you. I want to play one more song by you for my listeners.
Thank you.
And I'm going to have Sunday in New York, I think, kind of appropriate for today.
Beautiful.
And maybe we'll talk again if you have any more new CDs coming out. And like I said, if you could maybe have Al send me a couple of the older CDs, I would love to play High Standards. I'd like to hear it anyway, and maybe include that on my show sometime.
Good.
I don't know if there's anything I didn't ask you that you might want to tell my listeners before we end this and get back to the music. Did I forget anything that you would like to say?
Yes, thank you. I'd first of all like to thank you, Thomas, for the opportunity to appear on your show, and thank the listening audience for their indulgence. I certainly hope you like the music. And I just think this is the greatest American zenith of songwriting. And I'm anxious to keep this going and keep it in front of the world and new audiences. And if someone wants to help me, please contact me, greatamericansongbook.org, and Ron Kaplan, KAPLAN.com. And for those of you who are not computer savvy, our phone number is 831-687-0278.
All right, thanks a lot, Ron. It's great talking to you, and maybe we'll talk again someday. And like I said, I'm going to play Sunday in New York, and I'm going to get back to the show, and we'll talk again. And thank you for getting up early for us today and doing this interview.
My pleasure.
All right, you take care, Ron.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.